Hello, this is a brief overview of CarePass eRecord. Note that the eRecord has a patient login and a staff login. Patients can log in and they can set up their own accounts, fill out forms, access their statements, and so on. We'll get to the patient portal in a moment. I'm going to log in now as a clinician. So I put in my user ID and password, and this brings me to a home page. 90% of what a clinician will do is at this link called Patients. When you click on Patients, it brings you to a list of your current patients. Here are my current patients. I'm going to click on Alan Allenson. When I click on the patient from the home page, it brings me to the patient's chart or file. The file has a list of all the intakes and progress notes and documents that I have created for this patient. In addition, and they're listed here chronologically, in addition, across the top there is a green bar, and the green bar has links for account profile, which is a setup page, for appointments, for insurance, for uploads, and so forth. Since Alan Allenson is a current patient, I've already done an intake. I'm now going to do a progress note. So I click on this link called Create New Document. I get a select box. I click the down arrow, go to the document I want to create, a clinician progress note, and click on Create New Draft Document. This brings me to the progress note. Now, as I said, I'd already done an intake on this patient, and there is a diagnosis that is pre-populated forward. If I want to add a new diagnosis, I simply click on Add New Diagnosis. I get a pop-up window. I go down and I look at all the axes. I decide that I want to add a mood disorder diagnosis. I click on that, and I can add a mood disorder to the patient's file. So I'll say it's a major depression diagnosis. I click Save, and it's added. Next, I'm going to add the billing service code. So I click on Add Billing Service Code. Once again, I get a pop-up window. The pop-up window will have all the billing service codes that I use. I'm going to click on the new psychotherapy code, 90834, psychotherapy, 45 minutes. I click on it, I hit save. It makes a round trip to the database, and it shows up right here. Next, I'm going to do my clinical documentation. One of the features of the eRecord is that the progress notes pre-populate forward. So you don't write a new progress note, you merely edit an old progress note. So you'll notice under current symptoms, I've endorsed anxiety and depressed mood, and I've said I'm doing CBT and supportive therapy. I can leave those the same, or I can change them. So I'll make a change. Next, I'm going to put in some text, a summary of the session. So I'll put in the date, 1/1/2013, and I'll write a brief summary of the session. Next, if I want to add medication to history, if I'm tracking somebody's medication, I can use this link. Below that, it's mental status. Mental status pre-populates forward. The rest of the clinical information pre-populates forward, so if I'm satisfied with the note that I've edited, I put in my password, and I click on Sign and Make Complete, and I've completed my documentation. CarePass has an extensive library of intakes and progress notes. This is just one example. We probably have 100 different intakes and progress notes, including SOAP notes and DAP notes. This particular note is popular because it's mainly point and click, and it saves clinicians time. Now let us assume that the patient you've just seen gives you a copay for the session. You can post that payment by clicking on Accounting on the green bar right here. Click on New Accounting. There's the charge for 1/1/2013 for a 90834 of $150. I'm going to click this link, Post Payment. That brings me to the payment screen. So I'm going to put in $20 in the amount allocated to the above charge and click on Post Payment. The charge posts, and if I want to give the patient a receipt, I can click on Create Today's Receipt by clicking here. And there is the receipt. So let's quickly review. What does a clinician do? when they use CarePass. They click on Patients, they find a patient, they click on Create New Document, they find the document they want to create, they click on Create New Draft Document, and they edit a progress note. If it were an intake, of course, the information would be put in from scratch. A progress note needs to have a diagnosis and a service code. It needs to be signed by the clinician. That's the extent of the clinical documentation that a clinician does. It's essentially the same as what they do using paper, except for it's done on a browser. Next, I want to talk about how to set up a new patient. Once again, I click on Patients. I click on the link Add New Patient. This brings me to the account profile page. For patients, you put in their first name, their last name. For insurance purposes, you need to put in their date of birth. You need to put in their address. Also, for the CarePass system, you have to give the patient a login ID and a password that is 6 characters long and different. This enables clients to get to the patient portal and set up their own accounts and do other kinds of things. Typically, what people do with the user ID and password is they will use the last name as the user ID. So I'll put in Gray. Now, that has to be 6 characters long, so I'm going to put in Gray 12. And then for the password, what a lot of people will do, will put in the last name and then the date of the birth of the client. So I'll put in Gray 1970. By doing that, I've created an account when I hit Save at the bottom. Now, I should add that patients can set up their own accounts. If you give them a user ID and a password and put in their first and last name, they can go in and they can put in the address information and other information. Once you save the account at the bottom, the page will reload and you will have links for insurance, contacts, and security. Insurance is where you put in the payer information if a patient has insurance that you want to bill. So I'm going to click on Insurance right here. Then I'm going to click on Coverage Wizard. Then I'm going to click on Add New Coverage, Payer. The Coverage Wizard, I'm going to click the down arrow and I'm going to choose the payer. In this case, it's Aetna. Now, all you have to do is put in the subscriber ID. The plan number, policy number, the group number is not required. You just click on Patient is Subscriber and you put in their ID. You hit Save and you're done. Now, there's one caveat to that, and that is if the patient is a child or a spouse of the subscriber. In this instance, you would put in the subscriber's ID and the dependent's ID. If you don't know it, you just copy the subscriber ID and then put in the subscriber's first and last name. Again, you don't have to put in any other information other than that. You hit Save at the bottom and you're done. So I'm going to make this patient a subscriber, and I'm going to hit Save, and I'm done. If you get authorizations from an insurance company, there's a link here called Add Eligibility and Benefit Verification Information. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on Authorization Required for Professional Services and hit Save. Then I'm going to click on Add Edit Authorization. And then I'm going to add the authorization. So I put in the start date of the authorization, the end date of the authorization, the auth ID, the units allowed, when I want to be alerted, the services that are authorized. I hit Save and I'm done. You should now know how to write an intake or a progress note, how to post a copay, and how to set up a new patient in the system. Thanks for your attention.